Hello there, my truly magnificent, brilliant friends. A very warm, heartfelt welcome back to another special episode of the English Daily Podcast. I am absolutely overjoyed to have you here spending your valuable time with me today, no matter where you are listening from in this big, beautiful world.
Wherever you are and whatever you are doing right now, whether you are relaxing with a warm mug of tea, doing your household chores, or walking outside in a fresh green park, I want to invite you to take a deep breath, relax your shoulders, and let go of all your stress. This is your personal sanctuary for language growth. There are no difficult tests here, no strict grades, and absolutely no judgment. There is only you, your incredible passion, and my slow, clear voice.
My name is Kevin, and in today's episode, we are going to embark on an exciting journey into one of the most famous classic mystery stories in world literature, The Strange Case of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. It is a deeply moving adventure about a brilliant doctor in London, a secret laboratory, a mysterious chemical potion, and powerful lessons about self-control, bravery, and maintaining balance in our daily choices.
Here is our quick plan for today's mega episode. First, in part 2, you will hear the complete story told slowly and clearly. Just sit back, relax, and enjoy the mystery. Second, in part 3, we will enter a conceptual deep dive to analyze how the dual nature of Dr. Jekyll connects directly to your personal success as an English learner. Third, in part 4, we will step inside the vocabulary studio, look at 20 practical phrases directly from the story, and begin our interactive shadowing workout. And finally, in part 5, we will look at a practical strategy called passive lifestyle integration to easily boost your daily fluency. Clear your mind, get comfortable, and let us begin our great journey into Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. A long time ago, in the late 19th century, the great city of London was a place of deep mystery. Heavy stone buildings and long, narrow streets covered in thick white fog. During the cold winter nights, the gas lamps on the street corners cast strange shadows on the stone pavements. In a wealthy and elegant neighborhood of this grand city, there lived a very successful, respected, and quiet lawyer named Mr. Gabriel John Utterson. Mr. Utterson was a man of total order. He was a very serious man. He did not talk much, and he looked cold and severe. But beneath his cold appearance, he possessed an incredibly kind, loyal, and supportive heart. He was a wonderful friend, especially to his old school companions, and he never judged people when they made bad choices or experienced trouble in their lives. Every Sunday afternoon, Mr. Utterson went for a long walk through the streets of London with his distant cousin, an elegant and popular gentleman named Mr. Richard Enfield. They walked for miles, looking at the shops and the crowds, enjoying each other's quiet company. One Sunday, their walk led them down a narrow, clean side street. In the middle of this street stood a very strange, dark, and unusual building. It was a 2-story house, but it had no windows on the street side. The front door was old, scratched, and dirty. The paint was peeling off the wood, and the metal handle was covered in rust. It looked completely abandoned, like a house where ghosts lived. Mr. Enfield stopped, pointed his cane at the dirty door, and looked at Utterson with a serious face. He said, "Utterson, Have you ever noticed that door? It reminds me of a very strange and terrifying story that happened right here a few weeks ago. Utterson adjusted his coat and looked at the door with curiosity. "What happened, Enfield? Tell me." Enfield sighed and said, "I was walking home down this exact street at 3 o'clock on a dark, foggy morning. Suddenly, I saw two figures. The first was a small young girl running as fast as her legs could carry her. The second was a short, strange man walking quickly in the opposite direction. Right at the corner, the man and the little girl collided with each other. The little girl fell down on the stones, crying in pain. But the man did something completely monstrous. He did not look back. He did not reach out a hand, and he did not apologize. He simply walked straight over the little girl's body, stamping his heavy boots on her chest as if she were a piece of old trash. It was a horrible sight. Utterson gasped in surprise. "That is terrible! Did you catch him?" "Yes, I ran after him, caught his collar, and dragged him back." A crowd of angry neighbors gathered around, and a doctor arrived to help the girl. The girl was not severely injured, but everyone felt an intense wave of disgust when they looked at the man's face. There was something profoundly wrong with him, Utterson. He was short, his clothes were expensive but fit him badly, and his skin looked pale and rough. He did not have a visible deformity, but whenever you looked into his yellow eyes, you felt a cold shiver of fear and hatred down your spine. He looked like a creature from a nightmare. The man did not care about our anger. He looked at us with a cruel, mocking smile and said, "If you want money to avoid a public scandal, I will pay you." He took a key out of his pocket, opened that exact dirty door, and went inside. A few minutes later, he returned carrying 10 pounds in gold coins and a check for 90 pounds. The check was signed with a very famous, respected, and wealthy name. I thought the check was a forgery, so I stayed with the man until the bank opened the next morning. But the check was completely real. The bank paid the money immediately. Mr. Utterson stood in the foggy street, his heart thumping with intense worry. He looked at Enfield and asked with a low, tense voice, "Enfield, what was the name of the strange man who walked over the child?" "His name," Enfield whispered, "is Mr. Edward Hyde." Utterson felt a cold hand of fear touch his chest. He knew that name. He knew it because he was the private lawyer for one of the most famous, brilliant, and wealthy scientists in London, Dr. Henry Jekyll. Dr. Jekyll was a tall, handsome 50-year-old gentleman with a kind face, beautiful white hands, and a massive fortune. He lived in a luxurious mansion just around the corner from the dirty door. In fact, that dirty, windowless building was actually the back entrance to Dr. Jekyll's private laboratory and operating theater. But Dr. Jekyll had recently given Mr. Utterson a very strange and disturbing document, his personal will. The will stated that if Dr. Jekyll died suddenly, or if he disappeared mysteriously for more than 3 months, all his massive wealth, his mansion, his laboratory, and his money must go automatically to his dear friend, Edward Hyde. At first, Utterson thought Mr. Hyde was a deceitful criminal who was blackmailing Dr. Jekyll, forcing the kind doctor to give him his money. Now that he knew Hyde was a violent monster who trampled little girls in the street, Utterson became determined to solve the mystery and protect his old friend.
That night, Utterson could not sleep. He lay on his bed, looking at the dark ceiling, his mind full of terrifying images of a faceless monster walking through the foggy streets of London. He decided to become a detective. He said to himself, if he is Mr. Hyde, then I must be Mr. Seek. Every night, Utterson stood inside the narrow side street near the dirty door, hiding in the shadows of the thick fog, watching for the monster. Finally, on a cold, silent evening, he heard a soft, sharp clicking sound on the pavement. Click, click, click. It was a man walking quickly. A short figure stepped out of the fog and pulled a key from his pocket to open the dirty door. It was Mr. Hyde.
Utterson stepped out of the shadows, walked bravely to the man, and touched his shoulder. Mr. Hyde, I am Gabriel Utterson. I am a friend of Dr. Jekyll. Mr. Hyde shrank back in panic, hissing like an angry snake. He covered his face with his hand, but then he looked at the lawyer with his wide, glowing yellow eyes. "What do you want?" he asked with a rough, whispered voice. "I want to see your face," Utterson said calmly.
Hyde laughed a horrible, mad laugh, pulled his hand away from his face, and stood straight under the gas lamp. Utterson looked at him and felt an immediate wave of pure, absolute horror and disgust. Hyde looked small, his movements were quick and animal-like, and his voice sounded like broken glass. He looked like the very definition of pure evil. Hyde mocked the lawyer, opened the dirty door, slipped inside, and locked it tightly from the inside.
Utterson walked straight around the corner to Dr. Jekyll's main mansion entrance. He knocked on the door, and Jekyll's old loyal servant, a kind man named Poole, opened it. Utterson asked to see the doctor, but Poole shook his head and said, "I am sorry, Mr. Utterson. Dr. Jekyll is locked inside his laboratory cabinet upstairs. He refuses to see anyone today. He orders us to obey Mr. Hyde completely. Mr. Hyde has his own key to the laboratory door, and he comes and goes whenever he likes." Utterson walked home with a heavy weight of despair inside his soul. He felt certain that Dr. Jekyll was in extreme danger.
Nearly a year passed smoothly, and the mystery became quiet. But one night in October, a catastrophic crime shocked the entire city of London. A young, romantic servant girl was looking out her bedroom window at 11 o'clock under the bright full moon. The street below was quiet and empty, covered in a thin, beautiful mist. Suddenly, she saw an old, noble gentleman with beautiful white hair walking down the path. It was Sir Danvers Carew, a famous and beloved member of the British Parliament. As Sir Danvers was walking, he met a short man who was carrying a heavy wooden cane. It was Mr. Edward Hyde. Sir Danvers spoke to Hyde politely, asking for directions through the fog. But suddenly, Mr. Hyde flew into a massive, uncontrolled tantrum of pure demonic rage. He did not answer the old man. He raised his heavy wooden cane into the air and hit Sir Danvers in the face with all his physical strength. The old gentleman fell to the stone pavement, crying out in pain. Then Hyde became like a wild beast.
He jumped on the old man's body, stamping his heavy boots, and hit him with the cane over and over again until the heavy wood broke into 2 pieces under the intense force. The servant girl screamed in absolute horror and collapsed onto her bedroom floor, fainting from shock. Sir Danvers Carew was murdered in the public street. The next morning, the police found half of the broken wooden cane in the gutter of the street, along with a letter addressed to Mr. Utterson. The police inspector brought the broken cane to Utterson's office immediately. Utterson recognized the cane instantly. He had bought that exact cane as a gift for his old friend, Dr. Henry Jekyll, many years ago. Utterson led the police officers straight to Mr. Hyde's apartment in a poor, dirty neighborhood of London called Soho. The apartment was empty, but the rooms were in total chaos. Clothes were thrown on the floor, papers were burned in the fireplace, and the other half of the broken wooden cane was hidden behind a mirror. Mr. Edward Hyde had vanished completely into the dark city. Utterson rushed directly to Dr. Jekyll's mansion to confront his friend. Poole, the servant, let him in, and Utterson walked through the old kitchen, across the open courtyard, and entered the giant stone laboratory building. He climbed a flight of wooden stairs and entered the doctor's private cabinet room. Inside the large room, Dr. Jekyll was sitting close to the cold fireplace. He looked completely transformed. His face was pale and thin. His hands were trembling like dry leaves, and his voice sounded weak, hollow, and full of deep sorrow. He looked like a dying man. Utterson sat across from him, held the broken cane, and said firmly, "Jekyll, you heard the news. Sir Danvers Carew has been brutally murdered, and your friend Hyde did it. Tell me the truth. Are you hiding this monster inside your house?" Dr. Jekyll covered his face with his white hands, weeping loudly. "Utterson, I swear to you before God, I swear I will never look at his face again. I am finished with him in this world. He is safe, he is hidden, and you will never hear the name of Edward Hyde again. But my heart is broken, and my life is ruined." Jekyll handed Utterson a small piece of paper. It was a letter written in a strange, crooked handwriting, signed by Edward Hyde. The letter said that Hyde had escaped from London and that Jekyll did not need to worry about his safety. Utterson took the letter to his clever head clerk, a man named Mr. Guest, who was an expert in analyzing handwriting. Mr. Guest compared Hyde's letter with an old dinner invitation written by Dr. Jekyll himself. Guest looked at the 2 papers under a magnifying glass, gasped in complete surprise, and looked at Utterson doubtfully. He said, "Utterson, look at these 2 documents. The shapes of the letters are identical. The only difference is that Hyde's writing slopes to the left and Jekyll's slopes to the right. The same hand wrote both of these letters." Utterson felt a cold wave of panic hit his chest. He thought, "Oh my God, Dr. Jekyll is forging letters to protect a cold-blooded murderer?" For the next 2 months, a strange peace returned to London. Mr. Hyde was gone, and the police could not find him anywhere. Dr. Jekyll came out of his dark laboratory, opened his doors to his old friends, hosted beautiful dinners, and spent his time doing charitable works for the poor. He looked happy, healthy, and full of life. Utterson felt a deep sense of relief, believing the nightmare was over. But in the 3rd month, the doctor suddenly locked his doors again. He refused to see anyone.
Poole told Utterson that the doctor sat inside his cabinet day and night, screaming through the closed door for the servants to leave him alone. At the same time, another old-school friend, a famous physician named Dr. Hasty Lanyon, became suddenly and mysteriously ill. Lanyon had been a healthy, robust man, but in a single week he became thin, his hair fell out, and his eyes were full of absolute terror. He looked like a man who had seen a ghost from hell.
Utterson visited Lanyon on his deathbed and asked, "Lanyon, what happened to you? You and Jekyll are both acting so strange. What is the secret?" Dr. Lanyon raised his trembling hand and screamed with a voice full of agony, "Do not speak to me of Henry Jekyll. I am finished with him forever. He has done something unspeakable, something that has destroyed my soul. I have seen the absolute dark truth of his science, and now I am going to die." A few days later, Dr. Lanyon passed away peacefully. Before he died, Lanyon gave Utterson a heavy sealed envelope. The outside of the envelope said, "To be opened only by Gabriel Utterson. If Utterson dies before me, this document must be burned immediately without being read." Utterson felt a massive fire of curiosity, but he was an honest lawyer, so he locked the sealed envelope inside his private office safe, waiting for the truth to arrive. One Sunday afternoon, Utterson and Enfield were going on their usual walk. They passed through the narrow side street and looked up at the high window of Dr. Jekyll's laboratory cabinet. The window was half open, and Dr. Jekyll was sitting near the glass, looking out at the cold sky like a lonely prisoner inside a cage. Utterson stopped, smiled, and shouted, "Jekyll, it is Utterson. Come down and go for a walk with us in the fresh air. The exercise will make you look healthy." Dr. Jekyll looked down at his old friend, and his eyes filled with tears. He smiled sadly and whispered, "No, Utterson, I cannot come down. It is impossible. I am in a very dark place, and my suffering will finish soon. God bless you, my dear friend." But suddenly, right in the middle of his sentence, Dr. Jekyll's face transformed completely. A look of absolute pure terror and animal madness filled his features. His jaw twisted, his skin turned pale green, and he let out a horrible, muffled scream. The window slammed shut with a loud crash. Utterson and Enfield stood in the street, their faces completely white, trembling in absolute shock. They looked at each other in total silence, turned around, and walked away from the narrow street, their hearts full of a cold, heavy weight of dread. They had seen something unspeakable inside that window. A week later, on a wild, windy Wednesday evening, Poole, the servant, burst into Mr. Utterson's house. He was crying, his hat was missing, and his hands were shaking violently. He looked at the lawyer and gasped, "Mr. Utterson, please come with me right away. There is something horrible happening at the mansion. Dr. Jekyll has been locked in his cabinet for days, and I don't think the person inside that room is my master." Utterson did not hesitate. He grabbed his coat and his hat and followed Poole through the dark, empty streets of London. The wind was roaring through the bare trees, blowing dust across the square. When they arrived at Dr. Jekyll's mansion, all the servants, the cooks, the maids, the gardeners were gathered together in the center of the large kitchen, crowding together like a flock of frightened sheep, weeping silently in fear.
Poole led Utterson across the open courtyard, through the dark stone laboratory, and they stood outside the heavy wooden door of the doctor's private cabinet room upstairs. Poole stepped forward, knocked on the door, and shouted with a loud voice, "Mr. Utterson is here to see you, monsieur." A voice answered from inside the room. The voice was short, sharp, and sounded like a hissing animal whisper. "Tell him I cannot see anyone. Tell him to go away."
Poole turned to Utterson, his eyes wide with absolute certainty, and whispered, "Utterson, you heard it. Was that my master's voice? Dr. Jekyll has a deep, beautiful masculine voice. That voice was small, rough, and sounded like Edward Hyde. My master has been missing for 8 days. The creature inside that room spends all his time crying for a specific chemical substance. He writes short messages on pieces of paper and throws them out the door onto the stairs. He orders me to run to every chemist's shop in the city of London to find a pure chemical powder. Every time I bring a jar of the powder back, he opens it, screams in anger, writes another message, and says the powder is impure, a forgery."
"Look at this last message, Utterson." Utterson took the paper. The handwriting was Dr. Jekyll's handwriting, but it was written with an intense panic. The note said, "For God's sake, find me the old supply of the pure salt. The new powder has no strength, and my life is finished if you cannot find the old chemical." Utterson looked at the door and said firmly, "Poole, we must break open this door. We have an iron spade and a heavy axe. We must see the truth." Poole picked up the heavy axe, and Utterson held the spade. They stood before the heavy wooden door. Utterson shouted with a powerful voice, "Jekyll, I demand to see you. If you do not open this door, we will break it down by force." The animal voice inside screamed in total agony and terror. "Utterson, for God's sake, show me mercy. Do not break the door." "That is Hyde's voice," Utterson roared. "Poole, strike the wood." Poole raised the heavy axe and swung it with all his physical strength against the door. Bang! The wood cracked loudly. The creature inside let out a high-pitched scream like a wild animal caught in a metal trap. Poole swung the axe again and again, 2, 3, 4 times. The heavy iron lock snapped, the wooden frame broke into pieces, and the door flew open with a violent crash. Utterson and Poole stepped quickly inside the large room, holding their weapons, expecting a violent attack. The room was quiet, elegant, and perfectly clean. A warm fire was cracking in the fireplace. A small kettle was boiling on the table, and rows of glass tubes and chemical jars were arranged neatly on the shelves. But in the very center of the carpet, a body was lying face down, its legs twitching in a slow, dying motion. It was a short man wearing Dr. Jekyll's large, expensive clothes, which fit him badly like a giant cloak. Utterson ran forward, rolled the body over on its back, and looked at the face under the lamplight. It was Mr. Edward Hyde. His face was twisted, his skin was turning a pale green color, and a small glass vial was clutched tightly in his hand. He had just swallowed a fast, deadly poison to end his own life. The monster was dead. Utterson and Poole searched the entire laboratory building for Dr. Jekyll's body. They checked the underground basement vaults. They opened the large cupboards. They checked every dark corner. But the doctor
was nowhere to be found. He had vanished completely from his own house. They walked back into the cabinet room and looked at the large desk. In the center of the desk sat a massive sealed envelope addressed to Mr. Utterson in Dr. Jekyll's perfect handwriting. Utterson opened the envelope and found 3 separate documents inside. The first document was a new will. The name of Edward Hyde was completely crossed out, and Dr. Jekyll had written Gabriel Utterson's name as his inheritance master. The second document was a short note written that very morning, which said, "My dear Utterson, if you are reading this, it means I have disappeared completely. Go home immediately. Open the sealed envelope that Dr. Lanyon gave you before his death, and then read the full narrative confession I have written for you on the desk. You will learn the absolute truth of my tragic science."
Utterson took the heavy papers, looked at the dead body on the carpet, and said to Poole, "I am going to my office to read these documents in silence. Stay here with the guards. I will return before midnight." Utterson sat inside his private study, turned up his desk lamp, and opened the 2 envelopes. First, he read Dr. Lanyon's narrative, and then he read Dr. Jekyll's final statement of the case. The absolute, terrifying truth of the 4th dimension, the mystery of dual identity, was finally unmasked. Dr. Jekyll's final narrative confession. Dr. Jekyll wrote, "I was born into a wealthy, noble, and lucky family in London. I received an excellent education. I had a deep passion for science, and I wanted to become a respected, successful leader in high society. But I had a secret problem. I had a very lively, wild, and playful nature. I loved pleasure. I loved wild nights, and I wanted to enjoy the carnal temptations of life. However, because I wanted to look perfect and holy in public, I hid my pleasures behind a hard mask of severe order. I lived a double life. In the daytime, I was a brilliant, serious doctor. At night, I was a sinner in the dark streets." Because of this constant double life, I began to analyze the human mind deeply in my laboratory. I realized a fundamental truth. Human beings are not one single person. Man is not truly one, but truly 2. Inside every human soul, there are 2 separate species fighting a constant battle: the angel of good, order, and intelligence, and the monster of evil, selfishness, and pure carnal desire. I thought, wow, if I can invent a chemical potion to separate these 2 natures, life will be perfect. The good side can live in the bright sunlight, doing charitable works and science without any dark temptations. The evil side can go out into the dark streets, enjoy its pleasures, and feel no guilt or shame. After months of dangerous experiments with rare chemical salts and powders, I successfully mixed the liquid potion inside a glass tube. The liquid changed colors quickly. It turned from red to purple and then to a bright, clear green. One dark midnight, alone in my laboratory, I filled a small glass vial with the green liquid, took a deep breath, and swallowed the bitter potion. Instantly, a catastrophic, agonizing pain whipped through my physical body. It felt like my bones were breaking, my blood was boiling like a hot furnace, and my soul was being torn apart like paper. I collapsed onto the floor, screaming in total agony. A few minutes later, the pain vanished completely.
A strange, wonderful, and incredibly new sensation washed over my body. I felt lighter, more active, and full of a massive wave of raw energy and physical strength. I felt completely free from all the rules, laws, and boundaries of society. I walked across the courtyard to look into the large mirror in my bedroom. When I looked into the glass, I was shocked. I was no longer the tall, 50-year-old Dr. Jekyll. I had transformed into a short, young creature with rough skin and a twisted face. This was Mr. Edward Hyde. Why was Mr. Hyde so short and small? Because my evil nature was much smaller and weaker than my good nature. I had spent 40 years practicing kindness and science, so the monster was young and underdeveloped. But as soon as I looked at him, I did not feel horror. I felt a deep sense of recognition and freedom. He was my hidden nature unmasked. To return to my normal self, I simply mixed another glass of the potion, drank the liquid, experienced the brief agony again, and my tall body returned in an instant. I was Dr. Jekyll again. I had built a dangerous mechanism. I bought a small apartment in Soho for Mr. Hyde, gave him a master key to my back laboratory door, and told my loyal servants to obey him. Every time I wanted to enjoy wild, dark pleasures without ruining my reputation, I drank the green powdered fluid, became Edward Hyde, and walked out through the dirty door into the foggy London nights. Mr. Hyde could commit crimes, steal money, and trample little girls without any fear of judgment. When he returned to the laboratory, I drank the second potion, and Edward Hyde vanished completely like an illusion into thin air. Dr. Jekyll went to church the next morning, perfectly clean and holy.
But I made a catastrophic mistake in my calculations. I forgot a fundamental rule of nature. Whatever you feed will grow strong. Because I became Mr. Hyde so often, my evil nature began to expand rapidly. The monster was eating my life. One morning, I woke up in my bedroom after a normal night as Dr. Jekyll. I did not drink the potion before sleeping. I looked down at my hand on the white blanket. My hand was not the large, white, beautiful hand of Dr. Henry Jekyll. It was a short, rough hand covered in dark hair with sharp, crooked fingers. It was the hand of Mr. Hyde. I had transformed automatically in my sleep without the potion. My evil nature had become so powerful that it was breaking through the stone walls of my mind by force. I had to run to my laboratory in a panic to drink the liquid and save my identity. Then came that terrible night in October. I had stayed inside my house as Dr. Jekyll, trying to cage the monster, but my desires were screaming inside my head. I became weak, mixed the green fluid, and let Mr. Hyde out. Because the monster had been caged for so long, he was furious and full of a mad, demonic energy. When he met the polite old gentleman, Sir Danvers Carew, in the foggy street, Hyde flew into a wild tantrum of absolute rage. He raised his heavy cane and beat the innocent old man to death, laughing with absolute pleasure as the bones broke onto the cobblestones. When Hyde returned to the laboratory and became Dr. Jekyll again, I fell to my knees, weeping in pure horror and agony. I realized what a monster I had created. I locked the dirty door forever,
buried the key in the dirt, and vowed before God that I would never use the potion again. I spent the next 2 months doing charitable works, helping orphans, and praying for mercy. I felt happy and safe again. But on a fine January afternoon, I was sitting on a bench in a quiet green park, looking at the sky. In my mind, a small, proud thought arose. I am a wonderful doctor. I am a wholly intelligent man. I am much better than other ordinary sinners. That small thought of spiritual pride was my ultimate downfall. The moment I felt superior to others, my good nature weakened. Instantly, a strange sensation of sickness washed over my body. I looked down at my coat. It fit me badly, hanging loosely over my shoulders like a giant cloak. My skin turned green. I had transformed into Mr. Edward Hyde automatically in the middle of the bright afternoon sun, without any potion. That small thought of spiritual pride was my ultimate downfall. I could not walk into my main mansion entrance because the police were hunting Mr. Hyde for the murder of Sir Danvers Carew. If the guards saw me, they would catch me and hang me on the gallows. I had to find a secret way to get my chemical jars from my laboratory cabinet. I wrote a desperate letter to my old friend, Dr. Lanyon, using my own handwriting, asking him to go to my house, force open my cabinet drawer, and bring the chemical powders to his own private office. I caught a carriage, hid my face in my long cloak, and went to Dr. Lanyon's house at midnight as Mr. Hyde.
Lanyon gave me the chemical jars.
I was so proud and mad that I decided to show him a demonstration of my science. I mixed the green liquid in front of his eyes, looked at him, and said, "Watch closely, Lanyon, and your soul will expand with absolute knowledge." I drank the vial completely. The agony ripped through my body. I screamed. My bones stretched. And right in front of Lanyon's wide, terrified eyes, the short monster Mr. Hyde transformed back into Dr. Henry Jekyll. The absolute shock of seeing that transformation broke Dr. Lanyon's mind completely. He fell into a deep despair, his health collapsed, and he died of pure terror. And now, my dear Utterson, I am approaching the final terminal of my tragic life. My supply of the rare chemical salt has run completely out. Pool ran to every chemist shop in London, but every new jar of powder has no strength. I realized the dark truth. My original supply of salt had a hidden chemical impurity inside it, and it was that unique impurity that made the potion work. The new pure salts are useless. I am transforming into Mr. Hyde every 2 hours now. I can only stay as Dr. Jekyll for a few minutes if I drink a massive dose of the remaining old fluid. As I write these final words on my desk, my hands are starting to change into the crooked fingers of the monster. The wind is roaring outside, and I can hear Utterson and Poole coming up the stairs with a heavy axe to break down the door. What will happen next? Will Hyde hang on the gallows for his crimes? Or will he find the courage to swallow the glass vial of poison and end his life before they catch him? I do not know. But as the wood of the door cracks under the axe, I close this paper forever. Here, at the end of this narrative, the life of the unhappy, broken Dr. Henry Jekyll comes to an absolute, permanent finish. Welcome back, my truly wonderful, dedicated friends. Kevin here again. Now that you have listened to the complete, beautiful saga of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, let us step back together and enter our profound conceptual analysis. Let us understand the deep psychology of this science fiction and horror masterpiece and discover how the dual identity of Dr. Jekyll connects directly to your personal success as an English language learner.
When you look closely at this narrative, you see a man who lives a constant double life. In the daytime, he is Dr. Jekyll, perfect, serious, highly educated, and totally controlled. But at night, he lets out Mr. Hyde, wild, violent, uncontrolled, and full of raw animal energy. He tries to keep these two identities completely separate inside two separate compartments of his mind.
I want to tell you a very profound truth. Many English language learners experience this exact same dual identity crisis every single day. Inside your mind, there are two separate characters fighting for control over your voice. The first character is your internal Dr. Jekyll. This is the serious, intellectual student inside your head. Your internal Jekyll knows all the grammar rules perfectly. He can read difficult books silently with absolute comprehension, and he understands 50% or more of what I say on this podcast. He loves order, he hates mistakes, and he wants your English to look flawless, elegant, and beautiful in public. But the moment you step outside into a real conversation with a human being, a sudden change happens. You feel an intense surge of panic. Your heart starts a heavy thumping noise, and your internal Jekyll runs away in fear. Suddenly, your internal Mr. Hyde jumps out and takes control of your mouth.
Who is your internal Mr. Hyde? He is that short, wild, and clumsy speaker who comes out when you are nervous. Your internal Hyde does not care about grammar rules. He speaks with a thick foreign accent, he drops the verb endings, he confuses he and she, and he uses tiny, basic words that sound rough and broken like glass. When your internal Hyde finishes speaking, your internal Jekyll looks back in absolute horror and shame. He says, "Oh my God, that was a terrible performance. Your English sounded like a monster. You should be completely embarrassed." Because you feel this internal conflict and shame, you take the heavy key to your confidence, turn the lock, and bury yourself inside a dark laboratory cell of shyness, refusing to open your mouth to speak ever again.
But let us analyze the ultimate lesson of the story. Whatever you feed will grow strong. Why did Dr. Jekyll lose control of his transformation? Because he kept Hyde locked in a dark cage for weeks and then let him out in secret to do whatever he wanted without any control. He did not build a bridge of balance between his two natures.
To master English fluency, my friends, you must stop trying to fight a violent battle against your internal Mr. Hyde. Stop expecting your voice to be a perfect porcelain Dr. Jekyll on day one. When you open your mouth to speak, your English is supposed to be a little bit clumsy, a little bit rough, and a little bit imperfect. Those mistakes are not a sign of failure. They are just the natural, young state in your language skills. If you hide your speaking voice in the dark basements of shame, your shyness will become a dangerous monster that will eventually destroy your entire potential. I want you to bring your internal Mr. Hyde into the bright sunlight of everyday practice. Accept your clumsy, basic speaking voice with love, patience, and humor. Say to yourself, "It is completely okay that my sentences look a bit short and crooked today. My imperfect speech is the proof that I am practicing, that I am using my vocal cords, and that I am moving forward step by step, day by day."
When you treat your learning process with that gentle spirit of empathy, the Javert of perfectionism will vanish completely from your mind. You will stop being a quiet ghost in the shadows of self-doubt, and you will step onto the grand stage of life with your head held high, ready to share your unique voice with the world. Do not be afraid of your dual identity, my friends. Your voice is a beautiful vehicle for connection, and every single match you strike in the dark is lighting your path toward a brilliant, fluent future. Now, let us enter the most practical, high-energy segment of today's mega episode, the English Daily Vocabulary Studio. We are going to extract 20 exceptional vocabulary words and phrases directly from our psychological mystery story. These expressions are highly valuable, extremely common, and incredibly practical in natural, daily English interactions.
Here are your strict instructions for our massive workout. I will read each word clearly, explain its exact meaning in a simple way, provide multiple context examples, and then we will immediately start our interactive shadowing. When you hear the word cue, open your mouth and repeat the phrase out loud with power, copying my rhythm, my emotion, in my speed exactly. Let us begin our ultimate training session. Word 1. Cane. A cane is a long, thin, and strong wooden or metal stick with a curved handle used by a person to help them walk steadily, or held by a gentleman as an elegant fashion accessory. For example, the old grandfather leaned heavily on his wooden cane as he walked up the stairs. Let us practice shadowing. He pointed his cane. Pointed his heavy cane. Pointed it at the dirty door. Word 2. Trample. To trample means to step, walk, or stamp heavily on a person, an animal, or an object with your boots, causing severe damage, pain, or destruction. For example, the wild horses ran across the green field and trampled the small flowers into the mud. Let us practice shadowing. He walked straight over. Walked straight over the child. And trampled her heavily. Word 3. Shiver. A shiver is a sudden, brief shaking or trembling movement of your physical body caused by feeling intensely cold, extremely afraid, or deeply disgusted by something. For example, a cold shiver ran down her back when she heard the frightening noise in the dark forest. Let us practice shadowing. You felt a shiver. A cold shiver of fear. Down your spine, suddenly. Word 4. Blackmail. To blackmail means to force a person to give you a large amount of money or power by threatening to reveal a dark secret or a past crime about them to the public. For example, the criminal tried to blackmail the wealthy businessman using an old private letter. Let us practice shadowing. He thought a criminal was busy. A deceitful criminal was blackmailing. Blackmailing the kind doctor.
Word 5. Shrink back. To shrink back means to move your physical body backward and away from a person or object suddenly because you feel an intense shock,
panic, fear, or disgust. For example, the little girl shrank back in fear when the giant black dog barked loudly at her. Let us practice shadowing. Mr. Hyde shrank back. Shrank back in pure panic. Hissing loudly like a snake. Word 6. Parliament. Parliament is the official supreme group of elected politicians and leaders in a country who are responsible for discussing public affairs, voting on taxes, and making national laws. For example, the members of Parliament met in the grand capital city to debate the new education law. Let us practice shadowing. Sir Danvers Carew was a member. A beloved member of Parliament. A famous member of Parliament.
Word 7. Confront. To confront means to stand directly in front of a person, to face them, challenge them, or accuse them of a bad action or a secret crime in a firm and direct way. For example, the brave mother decided to confront the shop manager about the bad service. Let us practice shadowing. Utterson rushed directly. Rush to the main mansion. To confront his old friend. Word 8. Hollow. Hollow means an object that has an empty space or nothing inside it, or a human voice that sounds weak, empty of emotion, sad, and echo-like. For example, the old tree trunk was completely hollow inside, and small birds built a nest there. Let us practice shadowing. His voice sounded weak. Sounded weak and hollow. And full of deep sorrow.
Word 9. Clerk. A clerk is a professional employee whose job is to keep records, handle office documents, write letters, or manage files inside a business, a bank, or a lawyer's office. For example, the bank clerk checked my identification card before changing my account password. Let us practice shadowing. Utterson took the document. Took it to his head clerk. To his clever head clerk. Word 10. Robust. Robust means a person, an animal, a system, or an object that is exceptionally strong, healthy, tough, and full of physical energy, rarely becoming weak or ill. For example, the young farmer was a robust man who could carry heavy bags of rice all day long. Let us practice shadowing. Dr. Lanyon had been healthy. A healthy and robust man. A robust physician in London. Word 11. Physician. A physician is a formal and professional word for a medical doctor, especially a doctor who has spent many years studying advanced medical science inside a university or hospital. For example, she went to visit a famous heart physician to ask for medical advice about her health. Let us practice shadowing. Dr. Hasty Lanyon was famous. A famous and respected doctor. A respected country physician. Word 12.
Muffled. Muffled means a sound that is quiet, soft, and not clear because it is being blocked, covered, or obstructed by a heavy barrier, a wall, or a piece of cloth. For example, I could hear the muffled sound of my neighbors talking through the thick bedroom wall. Let us practice shadowing. The doctor let out a scream. A horrible, muffled scream. Scream inside his private room.
Word 13. Chemist. A chemist is a professional scientist who studies chemicals, or a licensed shopkeeper who prepares, mixes, and sells medical drugs, powders, and substances to the public. For example, walk to the local chemist shop on the corner to buy some medicine for your cold. Let us practice shadowing. He ordered the servant. Ordered him to run fast. Run to every chemist shop. Word 14. Dial. A dial is a round face, indicator screen, or control wheel on a clock, a radio, or a piece of machinery that shows measurements or levels with a moving line or numbers. For example, turn the small plastic dial on the wall furnace to raise the temperature of the room. Let us practice shadowing. The dials on the machine showed the chemical pressure. The pressure levels clearly.
Word 15. Salt. In chemistry, a salt is a specific white or colored chemical powder or crystal substance formed by the reaction of an acid with a base used in scientific experiments or manufacturing. For example, the inventor used a combination of rare volcanic salts to create the glowing liquid light. Let us practice shadowing. My supply has run out. Supply of the rare chemical. Chemical salt has run completely out. Word 16. Vial. A vial is a very small, thin glass bottle or container used for holding liquid medicines, chemical powders, perfumes, or rare scientific solutions securely. For example, the nurse pulled a small glass vial of vaccine out of the refrigerator box. Let us practice shadowing. A small vial was clutched. A glass vial clutched tightly. In his dying hand. Word 17. Dimension. A dimension is a measurement of space or time in a specific direction, such as length, width, height, or the general scope, importance, and aspect of a situation. For example, we need to analyze every single dimension of this financial problem before making a choice. Let us practice shadowing. The absolute truth was unmasked. Truth of the language dimension. Was finally unmasked tonight. Word 18. Duality. Duality is the state or quality of having two separate, distinct, and often opposite parts, natures, identities, or principles existing together inside one single entity or person.
For example, the novel explores the deep duality of human nature, showing both good and evil choices. Let us practice shadowing. We must understand the mystery. The mystery of duality. The mystery of human duality. Word 19. Impurity. An impurity is a small amount of a foreign, dirty, or secondary substance that is accidentally present inside a chemical, a metal, or a liquid, making it imperfect or different. For example, the golden ring was not pure because it had a small copper impurity inside the metal. Let us practice shadowing. My original supply of salt had a hidden impurity. A hidden chemical impurity inside. Word 20. Transition. A transition is a process, a movement, or a period of changing smoothly from one position, style, form, language, stage, or condition over time. For example, the brief transition from university life to a professional job can feel a bit difficult. Let us practice shadowing. His rigid heart could not change. Could not transition easily into a world of mercy. What a magnificent journey we finished today, my wonderful friends. We explored the deep mystery of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, and we learned that ultimate power comes from balance, self-acceptance, and our everyday small choices. Before I say goodbye, here's your quick fluency tip. Passive lifestyle integration. Stop treating English like a difficult potion you only drink once a week. Instead, build a simple English environment in your daily life. Change your smartphone's system language to English, or let this podcast play in the background while you do chores or drive. Let the rhythm enter your ears passively. Fluency is the natural, beautiful result of daily, consistent habits. Thank you so much for spending your precious time with me today on the English Daily Podcast. I am truly honored to be your companion on this path. If this episode brought a smile to your face or helped your listening skills, please share it with a friend or classmate today. Let's grow our global family together. Until next time, keep it balanced, keep it passive, stay positive, and always remember to keep a happy smile. I am Kevin, and I will see you very soon. Goodbye, everyone.